Hey, it's Sideline Soccer Dad, back again with a new episode called Finding the Seam. Now, what is a seam? A lot of people don't know. A lot of people do know. Either way, it doesn't matter. Your kid needs to know. And when you're watching the game, the seam is in 90% of the game. Everywhere you look is a seam. If you don't have the ball, you need to find the seam. If you do have the ball, you need to find the seam. And what do you do when you find the seam? Question mark. You need to pass the ball through the seam. You need to dribble through the seam. Or if you don't have the ball, you run through the seam looking for a pass, or you run into the seam to try to create space for your player to pass to you. You get behind the seam in between two players, stand there, waiting for the ball, and then you become an option. Being an option is one of the most important things in soccer. You want to make sure that the player with the ball has his head up and he sees you do it. So you might look over at him and kind of wait for him to pick his head up, and as soon as he does, then you make your run. That head up is the trigger. Now, of course, if you have a player without their head up, that's another problem we will address in a later video. But you look for the player to have their head up and you run through the seam. If you have the ball, you dribble, pick your head up, look for a seam, and penetrate. Break the lines, they call that. And what does breaking the lines do? What does it do? How does that help? When you run through a seam, there are two more players behind you and two less players in front of you to stop you from scoring a goal. That is the beautiful part about a seam. So every time you run through a seam or you split a seam or you pass through a seam, you are increasing your team's chances, and that's the most important thing.
So now that we know what a seam is, let's look at the basic training procedure that we do every single time in every single club that you've ever been to. This is what they do. You see them on the field. You have no idea why they're doing this. But what they're actually doing is dribbling with their heads up in between each other as if there was a seam forming every second they're out there. And that gets their head up. It gets them to look and penetrate. A lot of times the kids don't even know why they're doing this. So I think it helps to explain to your kids, look, this is about penetrating a seam. So when you see a seam and you run through that, that is what you're focused on. Now we're going to look and see what a seam is. It's a space between two defenders. And you can pass the ball through it or you can run through it. So here's an example. The girl in the blue is going to run through the seam. Here's another example. The girl in the blue is going to pass through the seam. Same situation, different thing. Now let's see what it looks like when the pros do it. Here we go. Player gets the ball. Number 17 splits the defenders, runs through the seam. He sees this, puts it right on him, and he's going to get to attack the goal and possibly get a shot. And don't forget to like and subscribe.